People lose their calm because they never trained their mind to hold the line under pressure. They think peace comes from silence, but real calm shows up in conflict. The secret isn't avoiding difficult people, it's mastering yourself so deeply that no one can shake your inner stillness. This calm becomes your power. It sharpens your decisions, protects your energy, and commands respect. Once you learn how to build it, no one you deal with can steal it. In a few moments, I'll teach you how to stay calm, centered, and unshakable, no matter who challenges you. Your calm is the real power. You believe it's the loudest voice that wins. But look again. The man who remains composed when others lose their heads, he commands the room. Calmness is not weakness. It's command. You've seen it in boardrooms, across dinner tables, in moments when tempers rose like fire, and the man who didn't flinch, he became the anchor everyone leaned toward. Your nervous system can be trained, yes, trained. Just like muscles grow under pressure, your composure grows under friction, but only if you allow it. You've allowed people's moods to shape yours. Their urgency has become your panic, but it doesn't have to be this way, not anymore. To remain calm, you must detach your sense of self from external events. A disagreement does not define you. A rude tone does not threaten your worth. You anchor your identity in purpose, not emotion. This allows you to respond, not react. Your calm becomes a decision, not a mood. Picture yourself in a heated meeting. Voices rise, accusations fly, everyone watches for someone to lead. You don't shout. You don't defend. You speak slowly, clearly. You listen before you speak. Suddenly the chaos loses its grip because your stillness disrupted the storm. Can you recall a moment when you lost your cool and regretted it later? What if in that very moment you had paused? What if you had chosen silence instead of sarcasm? Would the outcome have been better? Most people walk into interactions ready to defend, ready to fight. But you walk in ready to lead. You lead not with force, but with steadiness. In that, you become magnetic, respected, trusted. That is the beginning of power. That is the beginning of your calm legacy. Calm is not natural, it's trained. You weren't born patient. No one is. You were born crying, reacting, demanding. But you can be trained. You can be reconditioned. You can learn to slow your reactions, to pause before you speak, to observe without judgment. That training begins today. The truth is, most people don't want to train their calm. They want to blame their temper. They say, I just have a short fuse. But a fuse can be lengthened. You lengthen it with discipline. Start by observing your patterns. Who sets you off? What words trigger you? Is it tone? Is it disrespect? Notice. Then plan. Rehearse your response before the moment comes. Prepare, not with words, but with posture, with breath, with intention. Picture this. You walk into a room and someone insults you directly. Everyone waits for your reply, but instead of striking back, you smile gently. You say nothing. You pour your energy into stillness. The offender looks small. You look unshaken. Have you ever met someone who seemed untouchable, who couldn't be riled? That man trained for it. You can train for it too. Ask yourself, do you want to be calm only when life is easy? Or do you want to be calm when it counts? Because calm is not about being passive. It's about being in control of your emotions so they don't control your life. And that control is earned, one moment at a time. Let others be loud. You stay grounded. You don't have to prove your power. That's the trap most fall into. Believing that strength must be declared, that presence must be announced, that worth must be shouted from every rooftop. But real power doesn't need a microphone. It doesn't perform. It doesn't clamor for the spotlight. It is quiet, steady, certain. You've seen them. Men who beat their chests with bravado, who interrupt to assert dominance, who speak more than they listen. They talk over others, not because they have more to say, but because they fear silence. But true authority doesn't shout. It doesn't flinch in stillness. It commands without demand, because when you know who you are, you don't need to convince the world. A grounded man doesn't enter a room trying to impress. He observes, he listens, he studies before he speaks. And when he does speak, his words carry weight, not because of volume, but because of value. People listen not because he asked them to, but because he gave them a reason to. That kind of man doesn't just enter a room, he changes the energy of it. In heated moments, when tempers rise and voices crackle, the loudest man often loses. He reveals too much. He gets rattled. His emotions spill out, weakening his posture. But the grounded man, he waits. He breathes. He doesn't react. He responds. He watches the fire burn down before stepping forward. He doesn't throw punches of emotion. He strikes with clarity. Picture this. You're accused of something unfair. All eyes are on you, expecting you to explode or crumble. But instead, you hold the silence. You don't defend yourself with frantic words. You meet their gaze. You speak one line of undeniable truth. And suddenly, the crowd turns. Not because you shouted, but because you didn't. That is the power of stillness. It cuts through chaos with precision. Too often, we waste energy trying to be heard by people who have no intention of listening. We argue with those who already made up their minds. We try to explain ourselves to noise, but wisdom whispers. Don't engage what doesn't serve you. Stay rooted, stay calm, stay you. Grounding yourself means letting go of the need to react. It means walking through the world on your terms. Not faster than necessary, not louder than required. You walk slower, you speak less, you listen more. And you act only when the moment demands it. That's not passivity, that's control. Others will burn themselves out chasing attention. They'll jump at every bait. They'll run from every storm, but not you. You stay planted like a tree, deep roots, steady branches, unmoved by the wind. And when the dust settles, when the shouting fades, you're still standing. Not because you fought harder, but because you stayed centered. This isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Power is not in proving, it's in knowing. And the man who knows does not flinch. He does not chase. He does not need noise to feel significant. His stillness is the statement. And in a world addicted to attention, that silence becomes the loudest force in the room. Restraint is the highest expression of power. You could lash out. You could crush them with one sentence. You could expose their weakness, embarrass them in front of the room, and walk away with the crowd on your side. But you don't. Not because you're incapable, but because you choose not to. And that choice, that restraint, is not weakness. It's mastery. It's the final and highest form of strength. Most men confuse power with action. They think strength means reacting fast, striking first, proving a point at every turn. But the truth? Power without control is chaos. The man who throws every punch, answers every insult, and reacts to every offense isn't powerful. He's enslaved by his emotion. The real warrior, the real leader, is the one who knows he can, but decides not to. Not out of fear, but out of vision. Out of a clear understanding of what's worth it and what's not. The higher you aim, the more you must protect your energy. Every fight has a cost. Every confrontation has a price. And the wise man counts the cost before swinging the sword. He doesn't spend his strength proving things to people who don't matter. He doesn't fight to be right. He rises to lead. The fool, he uses every tool in every fight. He throws his full weight behind every opinion. He wants to win now, even if it costs him everything later. But the wise man, he holds back. He understands that not every moment needs his full force. He knows the difference between being provoked and being called, and he saves his strength for what truly matters. Imagine you're in a debate. You make a strong point, but someone throws a cheap shot, personal, petty, meant to shake you. You know the perfect reply, one sentence and they'd be done. But instead you smile, you breathe, you let the silence speak, because you're not here to destroy, you're here to build. And the room, they remember your grace, not their insult. That's restraint. And that's unforgettable. Have you ever won an argument but lost a relationship? Ever said something in anger that echoed back as regret? Power misused wounds both sides. But when you pause, when you check yourself before you check someone else, you give yourself a chance to lead with intention, not just instinct. That moment of pause, that's your greatest weapon. Ask yourself, does this serve me? Not your ego, you, your mission, your future. If the answer is no, let it go. Hold your position, not your tongue, because silence can carry more authority than 1,000 clever replies. Restraint is not about shrinking. It's not passivity. It's not weakness. It's decision. It's the sharpest form of discipline. It says, I could dominate this moment, but I don't need to. It puts you in control of your emotion, your focus, your impact, and that kind of control, that's what makes a man unshakable. Look around. The world rewards reaction. Outrage gets clicks, drama draws attention, but attention fades, legacy lasts. And legacy is built by those who resist the bait, who preserve their strength, and who never lower themselves for temporary wins. When you master restraint, you gain a new kind of freedom. You stop explaining yourself to everyone. You stop reacting to every noise. You stop trying to prove that you're powerful because you know you are. And that knowing, it liberates you. You become the man who speaks only when necessary, who moves only with intention, who lets others exhaust themselves in the arena of ego while you build empires in silence. And when you finally speak, it matters. When you act, it lands. When you lead, people follow, not out of fear, but out of respect. So next time someone tests you, tempts you, tries to drag you into their chaos, pause, ask yourself, is this worthy of me? And if it's not, walk on. Because the strongest move isn't always to strike. Sometimes the strongest move is to stay still, to hold your fire, to walk away undefeated. And that's not weakness, that's restraint. That's power at its peak. Speak like a surgeon, not a swordsman. Words are not toys. They are not ornaments for your ego, nor casual sound bites to fill silence. Words are tools. They are hammers and scalpels. They cut and they heal. They build and they destroy. And how you use them, carelessly or precisely, reveals the depth of your discipline. Most men swing their words like swords, reckless, emotional, loud. They speak to dominate, to impress, to win the moment. But you must speak like a surgeon, with precision, with purpose, with care, because one sentence can shift the course of a conversation, a relationship, or a life. One careless phrase can leave a scar that no apology can erase. When you recognize that every word carries weight, you begin to choose them with intention. You don't waste breath trying to be clever. You don't reach for drama. You speak when it serves, not your pride, but your mission. You speak not to be right, but to be effective. In high-stress situations, most men do the opposite. They raise their voices, hoping louder means stronger. They speak with sharpness, hoping their edge will be taken as leadership. But volume isn't command, emotion isn't direction, noise only creates more noise. You must do what few can, lower your voice, slow your speech, make space between your sentences. Let your calm become the loudest voice in the room. Picture this: a team is panicking after a major failure. Accusations fly, voices escalate, fear spreads like fire. In the middle of it, you raise one hand, not with force, but with composure. You speak in a low, steady tone. You don't add to the heat, you cut through it. You state the facts, you offer a plan, you remind them of what matters. And slowly, the room changes, not because you shouted, but because you anchored. That's leadership. Have you ever walked away from a conversation knowing you were right, but wishing you'd said less or said it better? Have you ever delivered the perfect comeback, only to feel empty afterward? That's because the purpose of speech isn't just to win, it's to move things forward. When you speak from ego, you may win the moment, but you lose the respect, the trust, the momentum. The man of strength sharpens his tongue not for show, but for service. He trims the fat from his sentences. He doesn't dump emotion into his words. He distills clarity from thought. Before he speaks, he writes. Before he writes, he thinks. Before he thinks, he listens. That is how precision is born. Not from impulse, but from inner stillness. Begin this practice today. Before speaking, ask, what do I want my words to do? Do I want to heal or harm? To direct or distract? To build or burn? And if you cannot answer clearly, don't speak yet. Wait. Clarify. Cut the excess, because less said with power is worth more than much said in haste. In meetings, don't compete for air. In conflict, don't compete for dominance. Speak so that your words move people, not away from you, but towards something better. Let your tone carry steadiness, not tension. Let your language lift the room, not weigh it down. You are not here to entertain, you are here to guide. And in times of chaos, the one who speaks with calm clarity becomes the true commander, not because of rank, but because of presence. The man who speaks last, who speaks least, who speaks only when necessary, he becomes the one others follow. So don't be the man who must be heard. Be the man whose silence makes others want to hear him. Don't be the one who floods the room with noise. Be the one whose single sentence shifts the direction of the entire ship. Words are not toys, they are tools. Use them like a master craftsman, with clarity, with discipline, and with reverence. And you'll find that people remember not just what you said, but how you made them feel when you said it. Patience isn't waiting, it's enduring with purpose. You've been told that patience is passive, that it's doing nothing, that it's weakness in disguise. But the truth is far more powerful and far more demanding. Patience is not inaction, it is endurance with direction. It is the quiet strength to stand your ground, even when everything around you screams, rush, react, retaliate. Real patience is not for the lazy. It is for the disciplined. It's the calm in your chest while the storm rages outside. It's the decision to wait with purpose rather than act from desperation. Others may mock your stillness, thinking you've stalled, but you know better. You're not doing nothing. You're preparing. You're sharpening. You're becoming unshakable. While others panic, rant, and ruin their own chances by trying to force outcomes, you step back. You observe. You build in silence. You wait. Not because you lack the strength to act, but because you've learned the wisdom of timing. You don't jump at the first chance. You prepare for the right one. The world glorifies speed. It applauds the man who moves fast, who speaks first, who strikes quickly. But behind every great achievement is the man who learned restraint, the man who didn't strike too soon, who didn't let pride or fear dictate his timing. The world may admire the impulsive, but it follows the deliberate, the one who sees beyond the moment. Imagine standing in line for an opportunity you've earned. You've worked for it. You've waited for it. But others cut ahead. Your pride burns. Your ego demands retaliation. But you don't explode. You don't fight for scraps. You stand tall. You breathe. You trust your preparation. And when your turn finally comes, you're ready in a way no one else is. Not because you rushed, but because you refuse to be rushed. Think of the moments in your life where impatience cost you something real. A project rushed to completion that crumbled. A relationship pushed too hard too soon. A decision made in urgency that you still regret. How many of your detours were self-inflicted, born not from lack of talent, but lack of patience? Now imagine if you'd waited, sat with the tension, held the silence, trusted the pace. How different would things be? This is what real patience demands, the ability to sit inside the delay without bitterness, to hold space between desire and fulfillment and not fill it with noise or drama. To trust that preparation is progress, even when there's nothing to show for it yet. Because the delay is not empty. It is working on you, shaping you. Patience is where your character is built. It teaches you how to lead yourself before you lead others. It tempers your emotions. It strengthens your mind. It matures your vision. It shows you the difference between what you want now and what you're truly meant for. Start practicing daily patience. Delay small gratifications. Let the moment pass without needing to insert your opinion. Listen longer than you're comfortable. Resist the itch to prove your point. Let someone else take the spotlight. Watch how your strength grows, not in noise, but in restraint. You become a master of patience by enduring small tests, waiting in traffic without cursing, holding your tongue in arguments, taking a breath before answering, letting a goal simmer until it's fully cooked, not half-baked from haste. And over time, that quiet self-control becomes something others feel. They begin to trust your timing. They rely on your steadiness. You become the one they turn to, not because you rush, but because you know when to move. Patience doesn't mean doing less. It means doing what matters when it matters most. It is the ability to stand firm with a vision too strong to be shaken by time. And that's what sets you apart, because while the world spins in chaos, you remain calm. You don't chase, you prepare. You don't flinch, you focus. And when your moment comes, it doesn't catch you off guard. It finds you ready. Every outburst costs you more than you think. Every time you lose your temper, you lose something else with it. Respect, clarity, opportunity. That's the truth most men don't want to admit. Anger feels like power in the moment. It feels like control. Like you're taking a stand, making yourself known, refusing to be disrespected. But behind that heat lies a deep cost. And when the fire dies down, you're often left sifting through the ashes of trust, of influence, of progress. Anger has a price, and more often than not, the price is greater than the offense that triggered it. You may feel justified, you may believe you had no choice, that they needed to hear it, that someone had to say something. But when the dust settles, it's not the outburst you remember, it's the damage. Words said in rage don't dissolve in the air. They leave marks, they create walls, and sometimes those walls take years to break down. Your energy is your currency. Every decision you make, every problem you solve, every plan you execute demands focus. But when you waste that energy on outrage, on proving your emotion instead of pursuing your mission, you rob yourself, you give away your direction. You trade long-term vision for short-term validation, and that's a poor deal every time. Picture this. You're running a business. A worker underdelivers or makes a costly error. Your first instinct? Slam the table, raise your voice, assert dominance. And in that second, yes, you feel powerful. You feel like you've reestablished control. But step back. What really happened? The room goes silent. Not out of focus, but fear. The worker stops thinking creatively and starts thinking defensively. They don't want to improve. They want to avoid you. Trust evaporates, communication tightens, innovation dies. And all for what? A few seconds of release? The illusion of control? Now imagine a different response. You pause, you breathe, you call the person aside, you speak low but firm. You ask what happened, you listen, you redirect, you hold them accountable but with respect. And now the worker learns. The room breathes. And most importantly, you lead, not from emotion, but from wisdom. Anger isn't the enemy. Uncontrolled anger is. There are moments where righteous anger is appropriate, when injustice must be addressed, when boundaries must be set. But even then, the strongest expression is measured, not manic. Anger that serves a higher purpose is still held on a leash. Have you ever won an argument, but felt emptier afterward? Have you ever said the thing that got you the final word, only to lose the relationship, the trust, the collaboration? That's the trade rage demands. It gives you victory in the moment and takes from you everything that lasts. And so you must make a habit. Notice the heat rising. Notice the urge to lash out, to punish, to correct with emotion. That's your signal. That's your moment of choice. Delay it. Don't suppress it. Redirect it. Go journal. Go walk. Go breathe. But do not pour that chaos into the room. Do not hand your power to the wind. Every time you stay calm, you build power. You deepen your command. You train your mind to lead not just your team but yourself. Self-mastery begins with emotional discipline. A man who cannot control his tongue will always be controlled by his circumstances. And here's something else. People watch how you handle anger, not just your enemies, your friends, your family, your team. When they see you stay centered when others would collapse, they trust you. They follow you. Because calm under fire is rare and it is magnetic. This doesn't mean you allow disrespect. It doesn't mean you shrink back from confrontation. It means you choose when and how to confront. You don't explode, you direct. You don't react, you respond. That difference defines leadership. Look around at the men who inspire you. Not the loudest, not the ones with the sharpest comebacks, but the ones who move with presence, the ones whose silence speaks, the ones who lead even in tension. Not by dominating the moment, but by commanding themselves. That's who you must become. And you start by mastering your anger. So the next time you feel it build, ask yourself, is this worth the cost? What am I trading for this moment of fire? And if the answer isn't clear, then the answer is no. Let the moment pass. Reclaim your clarity. Preserve your power. Because the strongest man in the room is not the loudest. It's the one who can choose peace even when war is on the table. Choose wisely. Inner stillness is your greatest defense. You can't control what others do. You can't control what they say, how they judge you, or how they twist your intentions. But what you can control, what you must learn to command, is how deeply those things enter you. That space between the world's noise and your response, that's your power. That's your fortress. And that control is called inner stillness. Inner stillness is not passivity. It's not weakness or emotional suppression. It's a shield. It's the fortress no insult can breach, the sanctuary no storm can flood. While the world spins, while tempers rise and voices shout, you remain composed. Not because the world is gentle, but because you've built a stronger center. Most men waste their lives trying to silence the world. They beg people to behave better. They chase environments with no conflict. They tell others to speak softer, to be kinder, to respect more. And when that doesn't work, and it rarely does, they feel like victims. But the master does something different. He stops trying to change what's outside. He focuses inward. He builds a stillness that does not depend on silence. He stops waiting for peace and starts bringing it with him. Stillness is built where no one sees. In early mornings when the world is still asleep. In long, slow breaths before the first move of the day. In the quiet question asked in solitude, who am I becoming? The answer doesn't scream. It doesn't rush. It simply arrives with a clarity that only silence can deliver. It tells you you are not your reaction. You are your response. You are not the chaos around you. You are the calm within you. Picture a sailor in the middle of a violent sea. Waves tower, winds roar, lightning cuts the sky. The ship creaks. But beneath the surface, beneath the rage and churn, the deep ocean is still, immovable, unaffected. That's you. You live on the surface with the rest of the world. You see the chaos, you feel the wind, but within, you are ocean floor calm, rooted, unshakable. Now ask yourself, when was the last time someone's words followed you home, replayed in your head long after the moment passed? Was it what they said that hurt? Or was it that you gave their words a home? Did you hand them the keys to your peace? Inner stillness is reclaiming those keys. It's saying, your voice is loud, but it does not control my mind. Your tone is sharp, but it does not pierce my worth. You may rage, but I do not have to rage with you. This kind of stillness doesn't arrive all at once. It is practiced, moment by moment, day by day. It starts with observing, not reacting. It starts with breathing, not blaming. When chaos rises, stillness doesn't mean it means you open up, but only to what serves your clarity. You let others shout, you nod. You let others panic, you plan. That's not detachment, that's command. In meetings, when tension builds, stay still. When criticism comes, stay still. When provoked, stay still. Not as a performance, but as a discipline, because the man who cannot sit with stillness will always be owned by the noise around him. Stillness becomes strength when it becomes natural, when it's no longer something you try to remember, but something you are, when it follows you into every room, every conversation, every challenge. You walk into fire and don't burn, not because the fire is gone, but because you carry water within. And here's the deeper truth. Inner stillness attracts. People feel it, they trust it, they lean into it. The man who doesn't flinch, who doesn't snap, who listens with presence and speaks with clarity, that man commands rooms without raising his voice. He becomes the anchor in storms, the calm in conflict. Not by controlling others, but by controlling himself. But it's not easy. There will be days when you're tempted to match the volume, to defend yourself, to lash back, to react. And in those moments, you must remind yourself you lose nothing by staying still, but you lose everything by losing yourself. So begin your training now. Don't wait for the next crisis. Start in the quiet. Practice presence in daily life. Hear the noise, but don't inhale it. See the madness, but don't wear it. Choose your inner world with more care than your outer wardrobe. Guard it, refine it, build it, brick by quiet brick, because the world will always rage. That's its nature. But the man who masters inner stillness, he doesn't run from the storm. He walks through it, calm, clear, whole, and nothing can touch him. You are the mirror, not the fire. When people bring conflict, they expect you to match their fire. They want your reaction. They want to see you flinch, snap, bark back. It gives them fuel. It validates their chaos. It pulls you down into their level where emotion overrules reason, where noise drowns out truth. But you don't give it. You reflect, not ignite. You stay still while they storm. You observe while they unravel. You respond, not to defend yourself, but to protect your focus, because your energy is too valuable to be spent on someone else's lack of self-control. You've seen it happen. A man enters a room already fuming. His words are sharp. His tone is bait. He wants a target, a fight, a release. But if no one bites, if no one meets him at that level, the fire fizzles. He burns alone. That's the secret. Fire dies without fuel. And when you refuse to feed it, you win without shouting. You become the mirror, calm, reflective, unshakable. You don't meet anger with anger. You hold up a clear image of what it looks like. And that mirror, it's more powerful than any retaliation, because it forces people to see themselves, their rage, their insecurity, their lack of control. And most people, when faced with that kind of truth, will do one of two things: quiet down or walk away. But don't mistake this for weakness. This is not silence rooted in fear. It's silence rooted in strength. You're not avoiding confrontation. You're owning it. You're just choosing the battlefield. You're not letting others walk over you. You're choosing not to fight on their terms, because you've realized power without direction is destruction. And you're here to build, not burn. You fight with clarity, not chaos, with vision, not vengeance, with control, not confusion. Your calm isn't indifference, it's command. The man who can stand in the middle of flames without becoming part of them, he becomes trusted, followed. Picture yourself in a public place. Someone loses control. They shout, they accuse, all eyes turn to you. But instead of matching the volume, you listen, you breathe, you speak slowly, directly, truthfully. You correct, not with venom, but with precision. And suddenly the crowd doesn't remember what was said. They remember how you stood, how you didn't flinch, how you didn't fall into the trap of reaction. That's the power of being the mirror. Because in a world that rewards loudness, stillness becomes legendary. Ask yourself, do you want to be feared or respected? Do you want to burn hot and fast or stand strong and last? Anger may intimidate, but it never inspires. Rage may shake a room, but it never builds one. And if you want to lead, to influence, to create lasting impact, then fire won't take you there. Light will. Calm will. Discipline will. The mirror is neutral, but it is never powerless. It doesn't attack. It doesn't argue. It simply shows. It reveals what's real, and people will either rise when they see themselves in it or run. That's not your concern. You don't control others' reactions. You only control your presence. Train yourself to respond with questions, not accusations. Questions bring clarity. Accusations bring defense. When someone lashes out, instead of barking back, ask, what exactly do you want me to understand? When tension rises, breathe deeper, slow down. Let your posture speak louder than your voice. Stand tall, shoulders back, eyes steady, no fidgeting, no retreat, just stillness with purpose. And if the moment demands words, speak with economy. Don't dump emotion into the room. Deliver insight, because when your words are rare, calm, and clear, they land. People listen, not because you force them to, but because you earned it. Let others play in the flames of ego, pride, and noise. Let them compete to be heard. But you build light, light that reveals, that warms, that guides. You're not here to win battles that don't matter. You're here to master yourself so you can master every room you walk into. There will always be those who try to rattle you, who throw chaos like darts, hoping to provoke a reaction. But if you want to lead, if you want to rise, you must learn this truth. You don't need to match heat to stay powerful. You need only to stand calm, present, reflective, and in time they will either quiet down or you'll outlast them. Be the mirror, be the stillness, be the master of light. Calm is the signature of a disciplined life. Your calm isn't random. It doesn't appear out of thin air. It's not a lucky trait or a genetic gift. Your calm is earned. It's the quiet reward of choices made in solitude, the byproduct of habits that most overlook. It is the signature of a life lived with discipline, order, and intentionality. You don't rise calm by accident. You rise calm because you have already fought the war inside yourself. Because your mind is not cluttered, your heart is not scattered, your life is not reactive. You wake with a plan, not a panic. You've already made your decisions before the chaos knocks on your door. The man who lacks discipline, he doesn't stand a chance. He eats whatever dulls his pain. He scrolls through noise instead of sitting with thought. He sleeps late and rushes through his mornings, and then he wonders why his mood is unpredictable, why he's short-tempered, why every small inconvenience turns into a crisis. It's not the world's fault. It's the absence of structure that weakens him. But you've trained. You rise early, not because it's trendy, but because you understand that calm is born before the world wakes up. You read, not to impress, but to strengthen your thinking. You exercise, not just for the body, but for mental command. You write, you reflect. You set your intentions like an archer drawing his bow. You decide who you'll be that day. Before the noise of others decides for you, but when the storm comes, and it always does, you are already ready. You've already met yourself in the quiet. You've already aligned your thoughts. You're not reaching for discipline in crisis. You've carried it with you into the crisis. Picture this clearly. One man wakes at dawn. He sits in silence for a few moments, reads something ancient, timeless, or wise, plans his day, moves his body, eats slowly, speaks little, then walks into the world, not rushed, not reactive, but grounded. Now picture another. He snoozes his alarm 3 times, jumps out of bed, checks his phone before he breathes, skips breakfast, skips intention, and rushes into traffic, into conversations, into decisions he's not prepared to make. Now ask yourself, which one would you trust in a crisis? Who would you follow when the pressure is high? Who would you look to when the team is unraveling, the tension is thick, and the room needs a leader? This is the difference between a life of reaction and a life of design. One is always catching up. The other is always in position. And calm belongs to the man who lives in position. The truth is, calm is not found, it is built, brick by brick, habit by habit, hour by hour. There are no shortcuts. There's no app to download, no podcast to play that will implant it into you. Calm is constructed in repetition, through hundreds of quiet mornings, through thousands of small decisions, through choosing what strengthens over what sedates. And here's the secret most don't want to hear. If your outer world is always on fire, look to your inner structure. Look at your habits. Look at your mornings. Look at your thoughts. Chaos on the outside often reveals disorder on the inside. Calm men don't control the world. They organize themselves. So ask yourself honestly, have I been living in reaction or in design? Am I responding to life with clarity or reacting out of fatigue, fear, and frustration? Because calm isn't what you do in the moment. It's what you've built before the moment. If you want to be calm no matter who you're dealing with, then build a life that demands it, that requires stillness, that's anchored in something greater than emotion. Rise early, not to impress, but to align. Eat with care. Move your body with purpose. Reflect before reacting. Schedule your days like a craftsman building something sacred. Prepare your mind like a warrior sharpens his blade, not because a battle is guaranteed, but because he refuses to be unready. Live in structure so that chaos never surprises you. Be so consistent in your foundation that when others panic, you remain composed, not out of arrogance, but because your roots run deep. And when others wonder how you stay so calm, so grounded, so unshakable, you'll know the answer. It wasn't a single quote. It wasn't a motivational video. It was the life you built when no one was watching, the habits you honored when it was easier not to, the mornings you rose while others slept, the moments of discipline that quietly sculpted your strength. So live it, not once in a while, not when convenient, every day, without excuse, without waiting for the perfect time. Because the storm is coming, and when it does, the man who built himself in silence will be the one who leads in the noise. Control your face. It's the front door to your mind before you utter a single word. Your face has already spoken volumes. In those first crucial seconds of any encounter, your expression broadcasts your inner state to everyone watching. The slight tension around your eyes reveals anxiety you thought you'd hidden. The tightness in your jaw exposes irritation you believed was under control. The world reads you like an open book and judges accordingly. This is why mastering your expression becomes essential for anyone seeking true influence. Your face serves as the first line of communication, setting the tone for every interaction that follows. When you fail to govern this silent language, you surrender control before the conversation even begins. Consider the power dynamics at play. Walk into any boardroom, family gathering, or social situation, and observe how quickly people assess newcomers. Their eyes dart across faces, searching for telltale signs of confidence or insecurity, strength or weakness. Within moments, they've formed opinions that may take hours to change, if they can be changed at all. The untrained person becomes a victim of their own transparency. Their face betrays every emotional fluctuation, every moment of doubt, every flash of anger. They wear their hearts on their sleeves and wonder why others seem to hold all the cards in negotiations, relationships, and leadership scenarios. But the person who has learned to command their expression operates from an entirely different position. When confronted with challenging news, they maintain composure. Their breathing remains steady. Their gaze stays level. Their mouth neither tightens nor trembles. Those watching see someone unshakable, a person who cannot be easily rattled or manipulated. This composure isn't about deception or emotional suppression. Rather, it represents the highest form of self-governance. You acknowledge your feelings without allowing them to dictate your presentation to the world. You experience the full range of human emotion while choosing how much of that experience to share through your expression. The practical benefits extend far beyond mere appearances. When you maintain a calm countenance during crisis, others instinctively look to you for guidance. Your steady presence becomes an anchor in turbulent situations. People gravitate toward those who appear unshaken because such individuals suggest safety and competence. Training begins with simple awareness. Start by observing your face throughout the day. Notice when your expression shifts with your emotions. Catch yourself mid-furrow or mid-squall. Practice relaxing your facial muscles consciously. Stand before a mirror and rehearse maintaining neutrality while imagining provocative scenarios. Pay particular attention to your eyes. They often betray what your mouth conceals. Train them to remain soft yet focused, avoiding the darting glances that signal nervousness or the hardened stare that suggests aggression. Your mouth should rest naturally, neither pursed with disapproval nor tight with tension. This discipline transforms how others perceive and interact with you. Colleagues begin treating you as someone who can handle pressure. Friends confide in you more readily. Strangers approach with respect rather than testing your boundaries. Your face becomes your most reliable tool, not for hiding who you are, but for choosing how and when to reveal yourself. In mastering this silent signal, you claim authority over your own narrative and step into the quiet confidence that changes everything. Don't match energy. Set the tone society conditions you to be a mirror. When someone raises their voice, you raise yours higher. When aggression meets you at the door, you answer with equal force. When mockery comes your way, you return it with interest. This reflexive matching feels natural, even justified. But every time you mirror another's energy, you surrender your autonomy and become their emotional puppet. The path to true influence lies in the opposite direction. Instead of reflecting what others bring to you, you must learn to direct what fills the space around you. You become the source, not the echo. You set the emotional temperature rather than simply registering it. This shift transforms every interaction. Walk into a room carrying your own energy rather than waiting to absorb what's already there. When chaos enters your presence, you don't join it, you contain it. When panic seeks to spread, you become the steady center that calms the storm. This isn't passive resistance, it's active leadership of the emotional environment. Consider the profound difference in approach. The reactive person enters each situation as a blank slate, ready to be written upon by whatever energy dominates. They become angry in angry rooms, anxious around anxious people, defeated in defeated spaces. They mistake this adaptability for social skill, never realizing they've abandoned their core self in the process. The person who leads energy operates from an entirely different foundation. They know who they are before they enter any room. Their emotional state isn't up for negotiation. They carry their own weather system and share it generously with everyone they encounter. Watch this principle in action during high-stakes moments. In heated negotiations, while others escalate their intensity, the energy leader remains deliberately calm. They speak more slowly as others speak faster. They lean back as others lean forward. Their composure becomes magnetic, drawing the room towards stability rather than chaos. The same dynamic applies in personal relationships. When someone approaches you with frantic energy, seeking to transfer their anxiety, you have a choice. You can absorb their state and become equally frantic, or you can offer them the gift of your groundedness. Your calm presence becomes an invitation for them to find their own center. This skill requires constant vigilance and practice. Notice when you begin mirroring someone else's emotional state. Catch yourself in the moment when their anger starts becoming your anger, their worry starts becoming your worry. Step back, breathe, remember who you are when no one else is influencing you. The benefits extend far beyond individual interactions. Teams look to energy leaders during crises. Families rely on them during turbulent times. Organizations promote them because they bring stability to unstable situations. These individuals become invaluable not because they're the loudest or most aggressive, but because they're the most consistent. Your emotional state becomes your greatest asset when you learn to govern it independently. You stop being a thermometer that simply registers the temperature of your environment and become the thermostat that actually controls it. You discover that presence isn't about forcing others to change, it's about remaining so firmly rooted in your own center that others naturally gravitate toward the stability you represent. In mastering this principle, you claim your place as an architect of atmosphere rather than a victim of circumstance. The man who pauses wins. Between every trigger and your response lies a sacred space. A moment so brief, most people never notice it exists. Yet within this microscopic gap between stimulus and reaction, your entire destiny takes shape. This is where character is forged, where wisdom emerges, and where the difference between greatness and mediocrity is decided. The untrained mind recognizes no such space. It experiences the world as one continuous stream of automatic reactions. Someone cuts them off in traffic and they immediately lean on the horn. A colleague makes a cutting remark and they fire back without hesitation. A family member pushes their buttons and they explode before they even realize what's happening. They live their entire lives as prisoners of their first impulses. But the person who discovers this pause gains access to a profound power. In that single breath, that momentary delay, that heartbeat of stillness, they step outside the chain of automatic reactions that govern most human behavior. They become the author of their response rather than its victim. Consider what happens in this space. When someone delivers harsh words intended to wound you, your initial impulse might be to wound them back. But if you pause, even for the span of one deep breath, something remarkable occurs. The raw emotion begins to settle. Your higher faculties engage. You can choose a response that serves your long-term interests rather than your momentary feelings. This pause isn't hesitation born of weakness. It's deliberation born of strength. The master craftsman doesn't strike the chisel hurriedly. He measures twice and cuts once. The seasoned general doesn't react to every provocation from the enemy. He responds according to strategy, not emotion. The wise person doesn't speak every thought that enters their mind. They select words that build rather than destroy. The pause creates space for your best self to emerge. Without it, you're governed by your most primitive impulses, the part of you that seeks immediate gratification, instant revenge, quick fixes to complex problems. With it, you access your capacity for patience, wisdom, and strategic thinking. You respond from your values rather than your impulses. This practice transforms every aspect of your life. In heated arguments, instead of escalating with the first cutting remark that comes to mind, you pause and choose words that seek understanding rather than victory. In moments of temptation, instead of acting on immediate desire, you pause and consider the consequences. In times of fear, instead of running or freezing, you pause and find your courage. The pause also serves as a filter for external pressures. When someone demands an immediate decision, trying to rush you into action, the pause allows you to recognize manipulation. When emotions run high and everyone else is swept away by the moment, your pause keeps you anchored to what truly matters. The pause doesn't make you slow, it makes you precise. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you powerful. Because while others remain slaves to their immediate reactions, you become the master of your responses, and therefore the architect of your destiny. The strongest person is the one who can remain calm under disrespect. When someone treats you poorly, they reveal everything about themselves and nothing about you. This is perhaps the most liberating truth you can embrace in a world where offense seems to lurk around every corner. Consider the nature of respect itself. Anyone can be pleasant when they're receiving praise, acknowledgement, or kindness. A child can smile when given candy. But what happens when that same person faces mockery, dismissal, or outright hostility? That moment, that precise instant, when disrespect lands at your feet, becomes a crossroads that defines your character. Most people instinctively reach for retaliation. The impulse feels natural, even justified. Someone insults you, so you insult them back. Someone dismisses your ideas, so you attack theirs. Someone treats you as if you don't matter, so you make sure they know exactly what you think of them. But here's what happens when you follow that impulse. You surrender your power. The moment you react with equal disrespect, you've essentially said, your behavior determines my behavior. Your emotions control my emotions. You are in charge of who I become in this moment. You've handed them the remote control to your inner state. But you are not a puppet. Your responses belong to you alone. When disrespect comes your way, pause and look deeper. What you're witnessing isn't really about you at all. It's a window into someone else's inner world, their insecurities, their pain, their lack of self-control. Secure, confident people don't feel the need to diminish others. Those who have found peace within themselves don't seek to create chaos in others. Think of disrespect as a mirror held up by the other person. But instead of reflecting your inadequacies, it reflects theirs. Their need to belittle reveals their own feelings of inadequacy. Their mockery exposes their own fears of being mocked. Their dismissal of your worth betrays their struggle with their own sense of value. Picture this scenario. You're walking through your neighborhood when someone deliberately bumps into you, mutters something crude, and tries to provoke a confrontation. You have a choice. You can take the bait, escalate the situation, and prove to everyone watching that this stranger has the power to transform you into someone you're not. Or you can do something remarkable. You stop, you look them in the eye with calm awareness, you say nothing, you continue on your way. The bystanders don't see weakness in your restraint, they see mastery. They witness someone who cannot be shaken, cannot be controlled, cannot be reduced to the level of petty conflict. Your silence speaks louder than any comeback ever could. This isn't about being passive or accepting abuse. It's about understanding that your inner peace is too valuable to trade for the temporary satisfaction of putting someone in their place. It's about recognizing that your energy is too precious to waste on people who haven't earned the right to influence your emotional state. How often have you let someone's careless words hijack your entire day? How many hours have you spent rehearsing arguments, crafting perfect comebacks, or seething over disrespectful treatment? That time belongs to you, not to them. Freedom from the need to react is perhaps the greatest strength you can develop. When you truly understand that others' opinions and behaviors are reflections of their inner world rather than judgments on yours, you become unshakable. You become free. Silence is not submission, it's strategy. We live in a world that mistakes volume for value, where speaking your mind has become a badge of honor and staying quiet is seen as surrender. You've been conditioned to believe that every thought deserves voice, every opinion requires expression, and silence signals weakness. But this belief system has led to a culture of noise, where words have lost their impact and conversations have devolved into competing monologues. What if everything you've been taught about silence is wrong? True power doesn't announce itself with a megaphone. It doesn't need to justify its presence or defend its position at every opportunity. Real strength often moves in silence, observing, calculating, and choosing its moments with surgical precision. When you choose silence over immediate reaction, you're not retreating, you're strategizing. You're conserving your most valuable resource, your energy. Every word you don't speak in anger is energy you can redirect towards something meaningful. Every argument you don't engage in is mental bandwidth you can allocate to solutions rather than problems. Consider the nature of revelation. When you remain silent, something fascinating happens. Others fill the void. They project their insecurities, expose their assumptions, and reveal their true motivations. Your silence becomes a canvas onto which they paint their inner landscape. They tell you exactly who they are, what they fear, and what drives them, all without you saying a word. This discomfort with silence runs deep in human psychology. We're wired to interpret quiet as tension, and tension demands resolution. When you refuse to provide that resolution through hasty words, you create a psychological vacuum that others feel compelled to fill. They talk more, explain more, justify more. They give you information they never intended to share, simply because your silence makes them nervous. Think about your most memorable conversations. Were they memorable because someone spoke incessantly, or because someone said exactly the right thing at exactly the right moment? Precision beats volume every time. When your words are rare, they become precious. When you speak sparingly, people listen intently. Picture yourself in a heated discussion where everyone expects you to explode with counter-arguments and emotional responses. Instead, you lean back, you listen. You observe the dynamics at play. Who's trying to prove what? Who's masking insecurity with aggression? Who's actually worth engaging with? Then, when the chaos reaches its peak, you deliver a single, well-crafted sentence that cuts through the noise like a blade through silk. The room goes quiet. Not because you shouted louder than everyone else, but because you waited for the perfect moment and struck with precision. Your restraint gave your words weight that no amount of volume could provide. Reflect on your recent conflicts. How many times did you say too much too quickly? How often did you wish you had paused, breathed, and chosen your words more carefully? Most arguments aren't won by the person who speaks first or loudest. They're won by the person who speaks wisest. Mastering strategic silence transforms you into someone unreadable and unshakable. You become a mystery that others can't solve through casual observation. They can't predict your reactions because you don't react, you respond. And responses, unlike reactions, are deliberate. This doesn't mean becoming mute or passive. It means understanding that your voice is a tool, not a compulsion. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Sometimes the strongest position is the one that requires no defense. When you embrace this discipline, you discover that silence isn't empty. It's full of potential. It's pregnant with possibility. It's the pause before the lightning strike, the inhale before the decisive blow, the calm before you change everything with a single, perfectly timed word. Your enemies will exhaust themselves trying to provoke you. Your critics will tire themselves attempting to read your thoughts. Meanwhile, you remain centered, strategic, and in complete control of when and how you engage, because true mastery isn't about having something to say in every moment. It's about knowing which moments deserve your voice. You don't owe a reaction. You owe a response. In the milliseconds between provocation and your response lies the difference between mastery and mediocrity, between wisdom and weakness, between controlling your life and having your life controlled by others. This tiny gap, barely perceptible to most people, is where your true power resides. Understanding the distinction between reacting and responding is fundamental to reclaiming authority over your own existence. A reaction is your nervous system on autopilot. It's the ancient part of your brain that evolved to help you survive immediate physical threats, now misfiring in response to criticism, disrespect, or challenging situations. When you react, you're operating from a place of urgency and emotion, driven by impulses that bypass your rational mind entirely. A response, however, is consciousness in action. It's the deliberate choice to engage your higher faculties before opening your mouth or taking action. When you respond, you're acknowledging that you have options, that you can choose how to engage with any given situation. You're exercising the uniquely human capacity to pause between stimulus and action. Society has programmed you to believe that immediate reaction equals strength, that hesitation signals weakness, and that the fastest comeback wins the day. You've been trained to defend yourself instantly, retaliate automatically, and justify your position without pause. But this conditioning has turned you into a predictable machine that others can manipulate simply by knowing which buttons to press. Consider how this plays out in your daily life. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and your immediate impulse is to honk, gesture, or curse. Someone criticizes your work, and you instantly launch into defensive explanations. Someone challenges your opinion, and you immediately argue back. In each case, you've surrendered your power to choose your response. You've become a puppet dancing to someone else's tune. But you are not a machine programmed to execute automatic responses. You are a conscious being capable of choice in every moment. No external circumstance can force a particular reaction from you unless you grant it that power. This is perhaps the most liberating realization you can have, that your responses always belong to you, regardless of how others behave. People will test this principle regularly. They'll probe for your trigger points, push your boundaries, and attempt to provoke reactions that serve their purposes rather than yours. When you react predictably, you become entertainment for them. You validate their ability to control your emotional state, and you give them exactly what they're seeking. Proof that they can manipulate you. When you choose to respond instead of react, you fundamentally alter the dynamic. You refuse to play the game by their rules. You force them to deal with someone who cannot be easily controlled or predicted. Imagine someone publicly accuses you of something untrue, something that strikes at your reputation and integrity. Your immediate impulse might be to defend yourself vigorously, to correct a record with passion and urgency. But what if instead you simply smiled? What if you paused, maintained eye contact, and asked a clarifying question? Help me understand what led you to that conclusion. In that moment, you've shifted the entire interaction. Rather than becoming defensive, you've become curious. Instead of reacting to their provocation, you've responded with genuine inquiry. You haven't given them your fire, you've given them your composure. And often, that composure is far more unsettling to an aggressor than any heated response could be. The regrets that haunt most people aren't about the things they didn't say. They're about the things they said too quickly. Those moments when anger spoke before wisdom, when hurt lashed out before healing, when pride responded before patience. These regrets are valuable teachers, showing you the cost of choosing reaction over response. Developing this skill requires intentional practice. Start small. When someone calls you bad that irritates you, don't respond immediately. Let it sit for 10 minutes. Count to 3 before answering questions in meetings. Take a breath before defending yourself in arguments. These micro pauses create space for your conscious mind to engage. The goal isn't to become slow or hesitant, it's to become deliberate. It's to reclaim those crucial seconds between trigger and action, transforming them from moments of vulnerability into moments of power. True strength isn't found in the heat of immediate reaction. It's cultivated in the cool space of conscious choice. That's where your real power begins, and where your authentic self emerges from beneath the layers of conditioned responses. Emotional control is your leadership badge. True leadership has nothing to do with titles, corner offices, or the ability to shout order. It has everything to do with the mastery you exercise over your own inner world when the outer world descends into chaos. People don't follow those who make the most noise. They gravitate toward those who remain unshakable when everything around them is falling apart. The connection between emotional control and leadership isn't coincidental. It's fundamental. A person who cannot govern their own emotional responses cannot be trusted to govern anything else. How can you lead others through uncertainty if you cannot lead yourself through your own inner turbulence? How can you provide stability for a team if you yourself are a storm waiting to happen? Leadership begins in the space between your ears, in the quiet moments when you choose composure over chaos, principle over panic. It starts with a discipline to pause when others rush, to breathe when others hyperventilate, to think when others simply react. This internal leadership, this sovereignty over your own emotional landscape, becomes the foundation upon which all external leadership is built. Your energy precedes you into every room, every conversation, every interaction. Before you speak a single word, people are already reading the emotional frequency you're broadcasting. If you walk in carrying anxiety, frustration, or barely contained anger, others will sense it immediately. They'll tense up, put their guards up, and prepare for conflict. But if you enter with genuine calm and centered presence, something different happens. People relax. They lean in. They become more open to influence because they feel safe in your emotional field. Consider the great leaders throughout history, not the tyrants who ruled through fear, but the ones who inspired genuine followership. What they shared wasn't charisma or perfect speech-making. It was an unshakable composure that others found magnetic. They didn't collapse when circumstances turned against them. They didn't let external pressure corrupt their internal balance. They maintained their center when everyone else lost theirs. This composure isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending to feel nothing. It's about processing emotions consciously rather than being processed by them. It's about feeling the full weight of a situation without letting that weight crush your ability to think clearly and act wisely. Picture a crisis unfolding in your workplace, your community, or your family. Voices are raised, panic is spreading, people are looking around desperately for someone to take charge, someone to provide direction. In that moment, the person who steps forward isn't necessarily the one with the most experience or the highest position. It's the one who has maintained their emotional equilibrium while others have lost theirs. They don't shout to be heard above the chaos. They speak quietly, and others quiet down to listen. They don't rush to action. They assess the situation calmly and then move with purpose. They don't blame or criticize. They focus on solutions. Their composure becomes contagious, spreading stability through a group that desperately needs it. This kind of leadership isn't dramatic or flashy. It doesn't announce itself with grand gestures or inspiring speeches. It simply shows up as steady presence in the midst of instability. It manifests as the person who doesn't need to raise their voice to command attention, who doesn't need to create drama to generate respect, who doesn't need external validation because they've found internal stability. The cultivation of this emotional mastery starts with small daily practices. It begins with speaking more slowly when you're frustrated, sitting straighter when you're anxious, and breathing deeper when you're angry. It involves catching yourself in moments of emotional reactivity and choosing a different response. It means training your body to reflect the kind of steadiness you want your mind to embody. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to practice this discipline. Every challenging conversation, every stressful situation, every moment when you feel your emotions rising becomes a chance to strengthen your emotional leadership muscles. The goal isn't to become emotionless, it's to become emotionally intelligent, aware of what you're feeling while maintaining the capacity to choose how you'll express and channel those feelings. When you develop this kind of emotional sovereignty, something remarkable happens. People begin to see you differently. They start turning to you in difficult moments, not because you have all the answers, but because you maintain your center when others lose theirs. They respect you not for your position or your credentials, but for your presence and your composure. True leadership is earned in the moments when everyone else is falling apart and you remain whole. Your mind is a battlefield. Guard it daily. The greatest battles you'll ever fight won't happen on any battlefield visible to others. They'll take place in the quiet theater of your own consciousness, where competing voices vie for control of your attention, your energy, and ultimately, your destiny. Your most formidable adversary isn't the person who challenges you publicly, or the circumstances that seem stacked against you. It's the internal narrator that interprets every slight as an attack, every setback as evidence of your inadequacy, every moment of quiet as an opportunity for self-doubt. This inner voice masquerades as your protector, whispering urgent warnings about threats to your dignity and reputation. It tells you that respect must be defended, that insults demand retaliation, that backing down from any confrontation equals weakness. But this voice, however convincing it may sound, is not your ally. It's the enemy of your peace, the saboteur of your progress, and the architect of unnecessary conflicts that drain your energy without advancing your purpose. The voice speaks in the language of immediate emotion, urgent reaction, and righteous indignation. It says things like, "You can't let them get away with that," and "What will people think if you don't respond?" It creates elaborate narratives about respect and reputation. It's convincing you that your worth depends on winning every verbal sparring match and correcting every misperception. But this voice confuses volume with strength, reaction with resolve, and conflict with courage. Learning to recognize this voice is the first step toward freedom from its influence. The second step is understanding that you have a choice about whether to listen to it. You are not obligated to follow every thought that enters your mind or act on every emotion that surfaces in your consciousness. You can observe these mental visitors without inviting them to stay for dinner. Your mind is indeed like a garden, and you are its sole gardener. Every day, you're planting seeds through the thoughts you entertain, the stories you tell yourself, and the mental habits you reinforce. When you repeatedly water thoughts of resentment, they grow into bitter forests that block out light. When you nurture insecurity, it spreads like weeds, choking out confidence and clarity. But when you consciously plant thoughts of peace, purpose, and perspective, you cultivate an inner landscape that supports rather than sabotages your goals. This process requires constant vigilance. Your mind doesn't naturally filter out destructive thoughts any more than your garden naturally prevents weeds from growing. You must actively choose which thoughts deserve your attention and which ones should be uprooted before they take hold. Consider a real scenario. Someone spreads false information about you, damaging your reputation in ways that feel deeply personal and unjust. Your immediate mental response might be a torrent of angry thoughts about the unfairness of it all, the need to set the record straight, and the importance of defending your character. These thoughts feel urgent and righteous. But pause and ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? Will engaging in this battle serve your long-term goals? Or will it simply drag you into the mud with someone who has already chosen to operate from that level? When you step outside the emotional immediacy of the moment and view the situation from the perspective of your future self, the answer often becomes clear. Most of these conflicts that feel monumentally important in the heat of the moment fade into irrelevance with time. The energy you spend fighting them is energy stolen from building something meaningful. The people you admire for their calm presence and unshakable composure didn't achieve that state through luck or favorable circumstances. They developed the discipline to stand guard at the entrance to their minds, carefully screening which thoughts gain admission and which ones are turned away at the door. This mental discipline transforms everything. When you stop giving power to every negative thought that crosses your consciousness, you discover reserves of energy you never knew you had. When you refuse to engage in mental battles that don't serve your purpose, you find yourself with time and attention to invest in what actually matters. The path to this kind of mental freedom starts with a simple daily practice, pausing before you react to your own thoughts. When that familiar voice starts urging you toward conflict, take a breath and ask whether this thought serves your highest good. Most of the time, you'll find it doesn't. Your mind can be your greatest ally or your most persistent enemy. The choice is yours, made fresh each day, one thought at a time. You can't win every battle, but you can win yourself. There's a fundamental truth that most people never grasp. Proving you're right and being right are two entirely different things. One serves your ego, the other serves your peace. One demands endless energy, defending positions that don't need defending. The other allows you to conserve that energy for pursuits that actually matter. The desire to be understood runs deep in human nature. When someone mischaracterizes your position, dismisses your contributions, or attacks your character, every fiber of your being screams for vindication. You want to set the record straight, to make them see your perspective, to win acknowledgement that you were correct all along. But here's what experience teaches. Some people don't engage in discussion to reach understanding. They engage to create chaos. These individuals aren't seeking truth or resolution. They're hunting for emotional reactions. They want to see you flustered, defensive, and drawn into their preferred battlefield of petty conflict. They thrive on the energy of argument itself, not on the substance of what's being argued. When you recognize this pattern, you face a crucial choice. Enter their game and inevitably lose your composure, or refuse to play entirely. Walking away from such confrontations isn't retreat, it's strategy. It's the recognition that your time, energy, and peace of mind are finite resources that deserve careful allocation. Not every provocation merits a response. Not every slight requires correction. Not every wrong opinion needs your input to set it right. This principle challenges everything our culture teaches about strength and weakness. We've been conditioned to believe that real strength means never backing down, always fighting back and proving our worth through verbal combat. But this conditioning confuses aggression with power, reaction with resolve. True strength often looks like restraint. Real power sometimes manifests as the refusal to engage. Picture yourself in a meeting where someone launches an unfair attack on your work or character. Your instinct might be to defend yourself vigorously, to correct every misstatement, to ensure everyone in the room knows the truth. But what if, instead, you simply responded, "Thank you for sharing your perspective," maintained eye contact for a moment, and then redirected the conversation to more productive matters? The impact would be profound, not because you won the argument, but because you refused to have it. This approach requires a fundamental shift in how you define victory. Most people measure success in these situations by whether they got the last word, whether they made the other person look foolish, or whether they convinced bystanders of their position. But these are hollow victories that often come at great cost to your inner peace and long-term reputation. Real victory lies in maintaining your composure when others lose theirs. It's found in staying focused on your mission while others get distracted by petty conflicts. It's achieved by protecting your peace like a valuable treasure, not squandering it on people who don't appreciate its worth. The habit of walking away from unnecessary battles creates space for what truly matters. Instead of spending hours rehearsing arguments or crafting perfect comebacks, you can invest that mental energy in building something meaningful. Rather than getting caught up in the drama of who said what to whom, you can focus on becoming the person you want to be. When you win the battle against your own impulse to engage in every conflict, external losses become irrelevant. Your sense of worth stops depending on others' acknowledgement of your rightness, and your peace stops being contingent on winning every verbal sparring match. The strongest people aren't those who never walk away. They're those who know exactly when walking away is the most powerful thing they can do. If you're tired of being thrown off by difficult people, it's time to take back your power. Learn how to control your emotions, respond with clarity, and remain unbothered no matter who you're dealing with. Master this calm, and you'll lead every situation with strength, silence, and certainty.